Hi everyone, welcome to my sewing studio. Today we are talking about the faux wrap dress. I'm going to show you I think this is the first knit garment I ever made 10 years ago. We're going to talk about the mistakes I made and the things I learned from making this dress and how I have incorporated those new lessons into the new Georgie dress from Sew Over It that I just made for my daughter. But first, I am Lisa from Pink Holly Bush Designs, where we talk everything sewing and smocking. So, the faux wrap. What is the faux wrap? Well, it's a pretty standard design. It has usually some of these gathers, goes where the bodice wraps over each other like the wrap dress, but it goes into a skirt that is not a wrap, so you don't have the danger of the wind grabbing that wrap and blowing your whole dress open. So I love a faux wrap rather than a standard wrap. It has that nice wrap look, but you know, you're not risking a wardrobe malfunction. So this is the first knit dress I made about 10 years ago, and this was New Look 6097. This was a really popular pattern when it came out. I think it actually was a pattern review, pattern of the year. I may be wrong about that, but I think it was. And as I said, I made it about 10 years ago for myself. So what are the mistakes I made? Well, my first mistake was assuming that because it was the faux wrap and that went into the waist seam allowance, that the wrap would stay in place and that I didn't have to worry about it gaping or have to wear a camisole under it. Well, that is not the case. I don't know if you can see, but I ended up having to put a snap on this so that I wasn't showing off more than I was comfortable showing off. So I thought the faux wrap would solve it, but it doesn't. The second mistake I made was as I was sewing this, the pattern tells you to stabilize the shoulders, and so I did that. But as I was doing it, I remember thinking, you know, you get that little voice in your head, and I was thinking, wonder if I need to stabilize that neckline. Well, the pattern doesn't have you do that, and yes, you do. By the time I went to sew this to the bodice, it had stretched by over 2 inches. Now, the dress is here, so you can tell I ended up making it work. Luckily, this is just kind of a just all over pattern, but I remember having to rip the whole waist seam out very carefully because it's knit that doesn't like to get ripped, and I had to trim over 2 inches off of the bottom of this in order to make this neckline work. So it absolutely needed to be stabilized. This also has pockets, which you probably can't see very easily with the pattern, but also I didn't stabilize the opening of those, and that really should have been stabilized as well. It kind of, again, it droops as you wear it just because the weight and the stretch of the knit. So those were the mistakes. So I was going to go and make a wrap dress for my daughter, and yes, I have the pattern, but given those problems, I really looked at what other faux wrap dresses were out there, and I chose to make her the Georgie dress from Sew Over It. And the reason I did was because it has just some wonderful features. So the first feature that it has is that you put clear elastic in this neckline. So that actually solves both of my problems. First of all, the clear elastic stabilizes this neckline so that it won't stretch. And the pattern has a wonderful feature in that they not only give you the measurement for this, but the measurement is broken down into sections So they give you the measurement for just the back neck. They give you the measurement for the front bodices. So you're really going to get that stabilized exactly without having stretching. The second wonderful thing about putting that clear elastic in is that that solves the gap problem, okay? The elastic pulls it in and pulls it towards you so you can move around and not worry that this is going to gap. So I didn't have to put a snap on this bodice for her, which I think that snap there, you see it. It just, you know, and it's right there, center front. So it's just not something I really care for. So that clear elastic solved both of my problems with the other pattern. Now, in the directions for the Georgie dress, it does say that you can stabilize this neckline using either stay tape or tricot interfacing. But if you do that, it will prevent the stretching on you, but it's not, it won't have that pull back, and you still might get the gapping as you're moving around. So even though it takes a little bit longer, it is worth putting that lightweight clear elastic into the bodice. I just thought it was terrific. Okay, the second thing I love about this pattern, the bodice is lined. Now, this fabric that I used to make this dress, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, was not my best choice, is an ITY. And an ITY really needs to have 2 layers for the bodice. And I just want to give a shout out to Katrina from Lifting Pins and Needles, who is the one who taught me that. So thank you. She explained that an ITY just is very clingy. And if you want a smooth look on the bodice, you really need 2 layers. A single one is just going to show too many lumps and bumps. So again, the Georgie dress comes designed to have that lining. So I thought that would just be terrific. Okay, what else? The other thing I love about this pattern is it gives you very clear guidelines on what types of knits will work. And it actually has 2 different variations on the skirt depending on how heavy your knit is. So this is view A with the gathered skirt. There is also a view B, which uses a circle skirt. And the circle skirt option is for heavier knits. So you won't have those gathers here in that heavier knit fabric. It also specifies again that if you're using one of those heavier knits, like a Ponte or a Liverpool, that you need to use a very lightweight jersey for the lining. So you're not lining it with 2 layers. You're not doing that bodice with 2 layers of the heavier knit. Okay, let's see. What else did I really love? Let's check my notes here. Okay, the 4th thing I loved about this pattern is you again put that clear elastic in the waistline. And so you're supporting that knit fabric, because this ITY, it wants to stretch, and without that I just don't think it would hold up very well. But that elastic in the waist is supporting the knit and is going to keep it from drooping over time. Okay, so did this dress turn out perfectly? No. I made mistakes here too. So what was the biggest mistake? Well, using a striped fabric and using a wide stripe on top of it. As I mentioned, this is an ITY. It wants to slip and slide all over the place. That would be fine with the Georgie pattern if you didn't have the stripe. But trying to match up those stripes in an ITY, in this with the wrap, was not, there was a lot of ripping out and hanging in there and having to do it multiple times. When I saw the fabric, I knew I had to get it for my daughter. It is so her, She loves blues and greens. She loves the ombre effect of it, and I just knew she would love a dress made out of this. My challenge was she is fuller busted, and everything that I could find was kind of a plain fitted bodice, and I really didn't think the stripes, and particularly the wider stripes, was going to look good on her in a fitted bodice. And so I was trying to find a pattern that would break up the stripes somehow across the bodice and yet still give her this great dress. So that is why I went with the Georgie dress. But here is the problem. This section along here, the waist, when you gather it in, I thought with all the gathers it would straighten that piece out. It still has a little curve to it, and so that's really hard because the stripes, of course, are straight, and so you're trying to have this look okay where you've gathered the waistline. And again, I had to rip it out, and it's still not perfect. I'm hoping that, you know, it's close enough and it's good enough and she can wear it and enjoy it. But that, yeah, that is one of the problems with the stripes. The other problem with the stripe is at the arm with the sleeve. So the sleeve cap, of course, has ease built into it. So if the stripes match down here at the bottom, they're not going to match up at the top. Now, a lot of times if you're working with a narrow stripe, it doesn't really matter. Your eye will kind of blend it together. But with the wide stripes, I really saw when they didn't match. So I've got it matching all the way up to here, and then the top, I hope you can see, it goes, I managed to put the solid stripe up near the top, so it kind of blended in a little bit. It's the best I could get it. But part of the reason I was able to do that was I really had to rip it out several times and fudge it, and I've stretched that sleeve a little way it really didn't want to go. And I was able to do that because this fabric is so stretchy, so I knew it would be okay on her. If you look at a typical narrower striped top, and this is just from Ready to Wear, it's a J. Crew, but top of mine. But if you look, you'll see that the stripes are all matched at the bottom, but as you go up, they aren't. Okay, and that is because of the ease in the sleeve cap. So, but I don't really notice it with this because, again, it's that skinnier stripe. But here with these wide stripes and with the color changing as well, it just stood out so prominently. So that is one of the mistakes. Okay, sleeve. Bodice. As I mentioned, this bodice is lined, which I love. And you are supposed to use a lightweight jersey to line it. Now, I did not line this with this same fabric because the stripes would have showed through. And so I've lined it with just a solid cream that I had. I think it would have been even better if I had an even lighter weight jersey than what I used. So if you really want to get that super lightweight, and part of the reason for that is here at the waist, you have 2 layers from one side, 2 layers from the other side. You have the waist fabric, so that's 5 layers of fabric all getting sewn together, and then you're putting that clear elastic in there as well. So that's just a lot of bulk right here at the waist, and so the lighter you can keep that, the better. All right. The last mistake I made, because yeah, why not, right, was at the hem. So, you know, when you have a striped fabric like this, it's so easy to just think, well, I'm just going to press up right along the stripe edge because you know, it's a built-in line for me to press up against. And I did that here on the hem. And then after I got it all pressed up, had it fused in place, was ready to go sew it, I realized, okay, now what color thread am I going to use? Because with it pressed up right on the edge of the stripe, that meant on the front my stitch should be going across the stripes, across the blue and into the white. And so what I ended up doing, I used the honeycomb stitch. That is my favorite stitch to use to hem knits, and I have a whole blog post on that, which I will link to in the description below in case you're interested in how I do that. But what I like about that honeycomb stitch is on the back, it goes back and forth over the raw edge, just like a, excuse me, just like a cover stitch would do. But that means that I would have had been stitching on the front across where the stripes meet. And so I ended up not doing that and just stitching in the solid blue part, but that means that my stitch on the back really isn't covering that raw edge the way I would like it to do. So that's just the thought. If you are hemming stripes, to stop and remember and don't automatically put the hem right on the line of a stripe. It might be better if you, so that your line of stitching is going to fall right in the middle of a stripe. It will be less noticeable. If you've liked this video, make sure to hit that like button. It helps me grow my channel. And come back again to hear some of my more sewing mistakes and some of the lessons I've learned. I hope if you make the Georgie dress, you won't make the same mistakes I did. As I said, it is a great pattern. Just don't make it out of a stripe, and especially a wide stripe, and you'll have a great result. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you give the Georgie dress a try. It is a great pattern, and happy sewing.